The interview is one of the key elements of the job search process. As with any skill, we can get better at it with preparation and practice. In this course, you will explore how to prepare for an interview and become familiar with the types of questions to expect, as well as the questions you should think about asking. You will learn how to prepare for second interviews, testing, and shadowing, as well as how to follow up on your interview sessions. So, in this training, you will understand the different types of interview questions and how to prepare to answer them. Learn the most effective ways to prepare for an interview, including how to present themselves professionally. Develop expertise at expressing themselves effectively. Know how to ask for feedback following an interview. So with that said, I wish you a happy learning. And let's get started. Understanding the interview. People can be nervous in an interview, especially if it's for a job they really want, with an employer for whom they really would like to work, or it is one of their first interviews. Really, however, an interview is just a business meeting with a specific purpose. Understanding the intent behind the meeting means that both interviewer and candidate can make the most of it. The employer uses the interview to check you out to see if you might fit their organization and be a benefit to their company. They need to get an idea of the kind of worker you might be, so they look at how you prepare for the interview as a precursor to how you will prepare to work for them. At the same time, the interview gives you a chance to decide if the employer is right for you. It is important to remember that whether the employer invites you to an interview, the most common route, or you invite yourself, as in an informational interview, the meeting focuses on the employer's needs and what you can do for them, even though the questions seem to be about you. It is a good idea to understand the different types of questions that may be asked and to have thought about the way you might structure your answers. You do not need to memorize your answers. In fact, that can make you sound like you're acting in a play. Instead, you should prepare so that you can relax and pay attention to the conversation and the information the employer is providing, rather than having to quickly come up with answers to questions that you never thought about before. In addition to thinking about the conversation, it is equally important to plan for the event in practical ways. Try to get a good night's sleep before the interview, eat properly that day, and prepare your clothes the night before so that you will arrive on time. Whether you do an interview in person, the most common, over the phone, by web link, or even via an audition, preparation and planning are as important as your answers to the interview questions. Before the interview, make sure that you know the name of the company, position you are being interviewed for, name of the person or people that will be conducting the interview. These first three pieces of information can be obtained from the person that books your interview. Do not, however, bother them for the following additional information unless they offer it. For example, sometimes a human resources staffer will offer to send you the links to the company website or provide copies of the annual reports. And here is an additional information. Know the company's purpose and goals. Gather some information about the company that applies to your interview. Don't just focus on the size of the company or the number of employees. Ask questions like, do they provide a particular or peculiar service? Do they have people working in different places? How does what they do relate to the job you are applying for? Familiarize yourself with their website. Check the local library for news articles or other publications containing information about the company. The preparation may seem like a lot of work, but think of the potential for your conversation. With some research, you can answer a question by framing it with comments that tie their organization to the benefits that you bring to the potential job. You can use phrases like, when I read your annual report, I noticed that. I found an article on your website that talked about. I see that you are expanding operations into. Can you tell me more about that? Any organization wants to know that they are noticed. When you express an interest and do a little homework, you will stand out from other candidates who have not taken the time to learn about the company. This planning will also help you answer the often asked question, tell us what you know about our company. In reality, the company really wants to know just 5 things about you. Why do you want to work there, as opposed to somewhere else? What can you do for them? What kind of a person are you? Will you fit in? Are you easy to get along with? Do you know what the company thinks is important, and do you share those values? What makes you different, stand out, from the competition? Can they afford you? Or might you come on board, get trained, and then leave for the first outside opportunity? You probably want to know similar things about the company. Why do I want to work here? Would I like to do this job for the company? What do I need to know? Skills, knowledge, and attitude to do this job well. Would I like to work with the people that work there? If this seems like a good place to work, what will make me stand out from the competition so that they offer me the job? Can I convince them to hire me at the salary, vacation, and benefit levels that I want? Welcome back there. Today, let's talk about informational interview. Informational interview. This type of interview is one where you have initiated contact and have asked an employer that you are interested in if you can come talk to them. Your conversation might start like this. Hello, Miss Smith. My name is Ima Looking, and I have recently graduated from school with my diploma. I understand that you sometimes hire people with my background, and I would like to learn more about your company. Would you be able to meet with me for 20 minutes sometime next week? Miss Smith may reply that she would be happy to meet with you and schedule the appointment. If she is not interested, she may simply say that they are not looking right now, but that you are welcome to call in a month. If so, be sure to record her information in your day timer so that you can follow up. If you are unable to meet with Miss Smith, you could politely ask her if there are other companies within the industry that might be able to use someone with your background. If she can, she may provide you with a referral. You can also ask if there is a good time to contact her again, perhaps in 3 or 4 weeks. Make sure that you thank Miss Smith for her time. Remember that you may be contacting her again, or that you may be acting on her referral. So, be polite and professional. Here are some guidelines for you. When you set up your informational interview, there are a few guidelines. Ask for a 20-minute initial meeting. Don't ask for a longer meeting because people perceive it to be a greater impact on their day. They often feel that they cannot spare a cold caller, or even a referral, 30 minutes, but can squeeze 20 minutes into their day. Stick to the 20 minutes and not a moment longer. Prepare for this interview as described in the previous section. Know all about the company and what they stand for, or at least as much as is publicly available, so that you can ask questions that are focused and that demonstrate your preparation skills. If there are specific projects coming up or positions that interest you, focus your questions on those. Remember that you are not on the hot seat over a particular job, nor are you there to ask for a job. You are only there to gather information. Have your list of questions on a clipboard or pad of paper to help keep you focused and on time. After you provide a 2-minute summary of what you know about the company, as well as your background, ask the questions that you prepared. Remember that since you initiated this meeting, you are asking the questions. Here are some potential questions that you might want to include in your 20-minute meeting. What kinds of projects are going on right now? Looking at expansion, new market areas, etc. Can you tell me what the people who work here say about this company? This might be anecdotal, or they could show you an employer engagement survey, for example. What would you say are the biggest challenges for this industry right now? How do you go about finding the people that you wish to hire? What kind of mood are people in when they leave work at the end of a shift? Are there special courses or training that help people to be considered for positions here? Is it possible for someone with my background to be considered for positions here? If not, what would you suggest is a good developmental step for me? Bring a copy of your resume with you to the meeting, but only provide it if you are asked. You may also wish to have your portfolio with you, but again, only provide it if asked. Information gathering meetings can shift to a more formal interview if the employer is interested in hiring you. If that is the case, your 20-minute period may not be enough. You can say something like, I promise to only take up 20 minutes today and I respect your time. Would you like me to schedule another appointment? Following the meeting, send Miss Smith a thank you note in appreciation of her time and information. This shows her that you genuinely appreciate her time. It also reminds her of your visit and may encourage her to think about you favorably in terms of your job search. Be sure to include your phone number on the note. Sample wording for a thank you note might be as on this slide. Dear Miss Smith, thank you for meeting with me yesterday. I really appreciate your time and the information that you shared with me. If you like the company, you could also add this. If you feel that my skills might be of help to you in the future, I would be happy to hear from you. Yours truly, Ima Looking. Types of questions. Employers generally rely on 1 or 2 types of questions, behavioral and knowledge. Understanding the types of questions that an employer may ask will help you prepare for your meetings. In large or medium-sized companies, it's common to be interviewed by more than one person, and for them to have a list of questions ready. These questions often fall into a behavioral category and start with a phrase like, Tell me about a time when. Although it may seem like the employer wants to know a lot of your history and how you handle things, they are really considering your past behavior as a predictor of future behavior and how that could benefit them. Common questions in this type are, tell me about a time when a customer insisted on speaking to your supervisor. Tell me about a time when people you supervised were fighting. Tell me about a time when you had to stay at work late to prepare a report or presentation. Tell me about a time when your job duties changed without any notice. Tell me about a time when you had to deal with an employee who was rude or late for work all the time. Tell me about a time when you had more than 3 phone lines on hold and people waiting at the counter. A great method is to use when preparing your answers is GOS, where you outline a goal, obstacles, and solution. Here's an example. We had a problem with serving customers on time, goal, and we either left them on the phone too long when they wanted to order, or we had lineups that were so long at the counter, customers were leaving, obstacles. To overcome the problem, solution. Detail how you overcome those obstacles, including figures or numbers whenever possible. In other interviews or combined with behavioral questions, you will commonly be asked knowledge questions. These often refer to things that you know or do in general. These questions might start with, tell us what you know about. They can be about your industry in general, advances in your field, big projects, changes in the economy, and so on. In other interviews, you may be asked to prepare a presentation or audition for the interviewer to watch. This is common for people in artistic work, such as music, dance, art, and photography, as well as teaching, training, some computer fields, and the service industry, table setting in a big hotel, for example. Getting ready. When employers interview candidates, they can be as nervous as you are. Sometimes they have experience interviewing, and other times they don't. They will want you to do well in your interview, so they may start the interview with some chatter to help you relax. In return, you can also help them relax simply by smiling, appearing ready, and encouraging their questions. You do not need to memorize answers to questions. If you do, what you say can seem forced, as though you are acting a part in a play. However, it is important for you to think about strong examples of your skills and background that you want to share. You can use your portfolio to support the answers that you provide and to highlight actual examples of your work. It is also helpful as a demonstration of how organized and thorough you are. The weakest question. Employers will ask you interview questions about your strengths, so make sure you know what those are. They may also ask you to describe your weaknesses, which can rattle some people. If they ask about a weakness, offer an answer that also describes what you have done to overcome that weakness so that it doesn't stop you from doing your job. Once the interviewer has finished asking questions, they will ask you if you have any. You need to prepare several. Try to create questions that you do not think the employer will answer during the interview. Look beneath the surface and explore things that you really want to know about the place you are considering. You can modify the samples below to suit your needs and area of work. What methods of training are currently being utilized here? How much time is granted for mandatory skills updating for staff? What are the first objectives for a new person coming into this role? In which area do your priorities need the most attention? Do you have other specific projects that you want me to be involved in? What is staff turnover like in my prospective department? Organizationally? What could I expect by way of orientation? Who is responsible for emergency preparedness training? Fire safety? Health and safety? What would make me want to work here more than anywhere else in this industry? Hi there, welcome back. Today let's look at general tips on how to successfully pass an interview. So, let's get started with prepare your answers. If you are being formally interviewed, you can expect that an interviewer will take some notes. In some instances, and depending on the level of the job, they will take lots of notes and then grade your answers after the interview. Employers use this standard method to help them remember whom they've interviewed. If you structure your answers using the GOS method, you will have included all the necessary information. If you can enhance your answers with results, in other words, numbers, that will help to improve your score. Next one is the 50-50. You need to have a blend of speaking and listening during the interview. This means that the employer will spend half the time talking and you the other half. They will be providing you with information about the organization and the job. If you talk too much, you may come across as overbearing. Talk too little, and the employer might think that you are trying to hide something about your background. Aim for the 50-50 balance. And the 30-2. Remember 30 seconds to 2 minutes. The best impression comes from speaking for between 30 seconds and 2 minutes at a time in an interview. If it takes more than 2 minutes to answer a question, you may be rambling or not sure what the question was asking. Stop and ask for clarification if you need to, and recognize that not everything needs a long explanation. Resourcefulness. Demonstrate that you are a needed resource, but not desperate for a job. Make sure that your answers, even when you are talking about yourself, focus on what the employer needs. This can take some practice. The employer is looking for someone who adds value to his or her organization, not someone who might turn into a problem or who simply wants the job to make a living. They want someone who cares about what they want. You'll have to show them that you are that person. Portfolio. Make sure that you have your portfolio with you as a demonstration of the work that you have done and can do. If you do not have a portfolio, consider creating one because of the value that it brings to an interview. For example, instead of simply saying that you can produce excellent work, you can use your portfolio to show some pictures of work that you have done, even if you are new to the workforce and the pictures are of projects that you did in school. If you do not have a portfolio, make sure that you bring copies of your cover letter, resume, or application form, and references with you. This demonstrates that you are organized, efficient, and serious about getting a job. It also gives you the opportunity to offer copies to the interviewer if they have not brought any to the interview. History. A new job is about making positive changes. Do not badmouth your previous or current employer in the interview, no matter how tempted you are. The world is smaller than you think, and you don't want the new employer to get a negative impression of you right away, nor will you want your attitude getting back to your previous employer. Accept that an interview is part of your research about the world of work, not just about that company. You do not have to take a job that seems wrong for you. For example, if it conflicts with your values, or is unable to make you feel confident and proud about working there. You won't like the job and will soon start looking for another one. Empathy. Understand the employer's concerns about this interview. These could include any of the following. Is this a candidate who interviews well but performs poorly? Will this candidate do his or her best to be here on time and for each scheduled shift? What if this candidate gets hired and trained and then leaves in a few weeks or months? Is this candidate someone who wants to put in a good effort, or someone who just wants to do the minimum requirements? What if this candidate turns out to be irresponsible, foolish or dishonest, a gossip, a crook, or something worse, and makes me look bad? And finally, success. Dress for success. When you go for an interview, the rule of thumb is to dress one step above the position you want. If you are going after a job in the service industry, dress the way you expect your supervisor would. If you are looking for an entry-level administrative position, dress as a manager does. No matter what the nature of the job is, your clothes must be clean, pressed, and free of imperfections like dog hair and stains. Your shoes should be neat and in good repair and can reflect the type of work that you do. They should also be polished. If you work in the trades or are interviewing for a job that will lead to wearing a uniform, do not wear your work clothes to your interview. A nice pair of slacks, a shirt with a collar, and a good pair of shoes will put you in a professional and presentable light and make you look like someone who wants to be taken seriously. Live and in person. Mock interviews are a part of any interview workshop. You will need the list of 8 to 10 questions that you created earlier, as well as your strengths and weaknesses for this activity. You can copy them below if you like. Each participant gives his or her list of questions to the interviewer so that they are being asked questions that pertain to the job that they want. The interview starts with a greeting, including handshake and introduction, before the questions get underway. The coach's job is to simply observe the interviewee without interrupting. They may have some brief remarks for the interviewer, but our focus here is on the job candidate, not the interviewer. They should make notes about positive and constructive points in the interview. Points to look for can include handshake quality, eye contact, overall impression, pleasant, prepared, body language, sitting upright, being open to questions, vocal quality, clear and understandable answers, mumbling, nervous throat clearing, answers made use of the tips that we explored earlier, saying thank you at the end. Now, let's talk about following up the interview. Since people often experience butterflies or stage fright before speaking in public, here are a few exercises to help you get going. In addition to doing some relaxation exercises, It also helps to know your content. In this case, your portfolio, resume, cover letter, and work-based vignettes. You should also be familiar with the values and goals of your prospective employer, and be comfortable relying on the tips that we discussed earlier. Warm-ups and tips for public speaking. Arrive 10 minutes early so that you have the chance to calm your breathing and focus on the activities that are coming up. Visit a washroom in the building. It puts things into perspective and reminds us that we all have bodily needs. Even the interviewer will have had to visit a washroom today. Go through a 1-2-3 exercise like the one here. One thing that I like about this company or building already. 2 things that I accept about myself. 3 things that I like about myself. Common problems and solutions. Hi there and welcome back. Today we will talk about common problems and their solutions. So let's get started. Remember, uncomfortable topics can come up in an interview. Knowing how to respond to them helps you manage the interview with finesse. If the interviewer asks you questions that you think are illegal or inappropriate, you can politely tell them that. For example, it is illegal, in many jurisdictions, to ask people about their ethnic background, sick time usage, or religion. Most interviewers have good intentions and just want to know about the kind of work you do and whether you will fit into the organization. Someone who is inexperienced or who simply dismisses the law could also interview you. You will have to decide how far you want to go in an answer, depending on your own comfort level. You'll also have to decide what to say in order to help with the flow of conversation. For example, if you know that the organization operates with a rotating shift schedule that includes Sunday morning, and you normally attend church at that time, you could mention your situation along with a solution. Here are 2 examples. I am happy to work whatever shifts you offer. I normally attend church on Sunday, so I would prefer not to work at that time, but I'd be happy to work Friday evenings if that's a time that people normally want to have off, or at another time. I normally attend services on Saturday evening, and I can appreciate that many people want that time off. Would it be possible to alternate shifts, or to work 2 Saturday evenings and have 2 off a month, so that I can still worship with my congregation? In return, I'd be happy to work a Sunday shift when I know that other people are attending church. Perhaps you have a physical need that the employer is focusing on. Focus on being a problem solver instead of just stating what you want. Otherwise, you may come across as having a bad attitude or being a troublemaker. You might say something like, I know that I am able to do the work that you have described, and, in fact, I am excited about the opportunity to work here. I do have a prosthetic leg, and that makes standing for long periods or going up and down stairs quickly a challenge, but I am fine as long as I have a stool nearby. Usually, when you are upfront and communicate your needs, an employer is happy to accommodate you. If he or she is unable to make allowances for your needs, ask for an explanation of why not so that you can work on a solution together. Going back to the example above, sometimes a stool might seem like a hazard, or other people may trip on it, but it's not really the problem. The employer may not be used to working with people who know what they need, or who have special needs in the workplace. Be confident in yourself. If you believe that you can honestly do the job, the employer will benefit from having you, just as you benefit by being there. Be aware of how employers might ask you about your ability to do a particular job. For example, an interviewer might ask if you have a disability that could affect your ability to do the job. The question is often phrased like this: Is there anything that would prevent you from performing the duties of this job exactly as I have described them to you? This question is allowed because the employer is asking it in terms of your ability to do the job. The following are examples of what is not allowed. How many sick days do you take a year? Have you ever had a long-term or workers' compensation claim? Do you have a disability? Do you have young children at home? What religion are you? What is your ethnic background or country of origin? The question behind these questions is also, are you capable of performing the duties of this job? That's the information a prospective employer needs to know. Be aware that you might be asked questions like mentioned earlier and plan for how you will answer them. One way to avoid awkward questions is for you to be upfront with any issues. Don't leave all the responsibility with the employer. For example, if you prefer not to work rotating shifts or to relocate, there is no point accepting a job where you are expected to do those things. Don't expect that an employer will not add to a shift rotation just because you do not like working a particular shift. There are probably plenty of other staff who don't like working all shifts, but they like their jobs for other reasons and are willing to make a trade-off. chances are that you won't be able to work your way into the most desired hours on your first day. Approach the labor market with a good understanding of whether your type of work is a shift position or not, and be honest with yourself about the nature of the job market, where more and more positions involve shift work. Be frank about areas of your resume or portfolio where the employer might have questions. For example, gaps in your work history may be an issue. Questions about your appearance or demeanor, such as tattoos and piercings, may also come up. Being open to a potential employer's questions will help them to see you as a person of interest rather than a potential liability or troublemaker before you even begin sharing your information. A candidate's comfort level with disclosing helps an employer make a decision about who to hire. Some things, however, bear careful consideration. If you have a medical condition that is well managed and will not affect your ability to do the job, or you have a medical condition that does not require some kind of accommodation, you do not have to disclose it. This is a particularly sensitive area where we think about mental health issues. Many people live productive lives and work with conditions like depression, anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorders, or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which they have learned to manage. If the condition does not affect your ability to do your job, you do not have to disclose it to an employer. In fact, we find that very few employers understand how they can support employees who have mental health or chronic health conditions. So when candidates disclose these issues, the employer may not consider them any further. If you are not sure how to handle a disclosure about a health issue, we strongly recommend that you work on this with a career development professional. What to expect after the interview. If you do well in your initial interview and the company is interested in you, they may need some additional information. This is sometimes approached through a second interview, which may be presented in several ways, or through testing to demonstrate your abilities. So let's talk about the second interview. Second interview. In a large company, a panel of 3 to 5 people often conducts the second interview. These individuals are often at a higher level on the organization charts than the person who initially interviewed you, or they may simply be different people who work at your level or different members of the human resources team. When they call you to arrange your second interview, be sure to ask who is on the panel so that you can prepare accordingly. Second interviews are often structured around behavioral interview questions. Normally, they won't be the same questions you were asked in the first interview. Some managers like to structure second interviews in a different way. This may be a chance for you to have lunch with your potential manager or coffee with potential teammates. Here are a few guidelines for eating while interviewing. Bring money in case you have to pay. If you are invited to lunch, from an etiquette point of view, your host should pay. But this can be awkward. Make sure you have money with you to pay for your own lunch if you need to. Use your best table manners. Place your napkin on your lap. Know which cutlery to use, and put it down between bites. If you are not sure what to do, ask a friend or trusted family member, or look it up on the internet. Eating with a potential boss or client is an opportunity to display yourself, so make yourself proud. Chew with your mouth closed. Don't talk with your mouth full, and don't slurp. Your host should provide you with an indication of a price limit. Please order anything you like under $15. That way I can claim it on my expenses. Or, everything here is good, and this meal is my treat, so have whatever you like. If your host doesn't let you know the budget for the meal, politely ask or choose a meal similar in price to the one he or she selects. Remember that this meal, your interview, is about the employer, not you. You do not have to order the most expensive item on the menu. Avoid food that will drip, squirt, or otherwise create a scene. Stick to dishes that are simple and manageable. You don't want to feel self-conscious because you are trying not to stain your good shirt, or because you cannot squish the bun of a giant hamburger enough to get it into your mouth. Ask questions that show your interest in the company or position. You will have had some time to think about things, and your questions will help keep the conversation moving throughout the meeting. Guidelines on alcohol. Never, ever consume alcohol at an interview or business meeting if you will be driving home. If you think that since the boss is having one, you should too, and you are driving yourself home, think again. If your host orders a drink, you may too, but only if they invite you to. Otherwise, stick to non-alcoholic beverages. Testing. Pre-employment testing is becoming quite popular. It assures employers that a candidate has the basic skills for a job, and that the candidate has the skills that they reported on their resume. For a candidate, testing is an opportunity to demonstrate your abilities, as well as your honesty in your resume. In order to make testing easier, candidates are encouraged to review their resumes and portfolios before testing, complete practice tests in their area of skill, meet with a coach or mentor, exercise. Being told, no thanks. Once you've made it through the interview, it's time for the offer. If you are a confident individual, you can ask for the job at the end of the interview. You can say something like, "I would like to work with you. Can you offer me this job?" A large number of successful offers can come from that kind of confidence. Often, an employer will tell you that they'll get back to you with a decision within a couple of days. You can then ask, "If I don't hear from you by Tuesday, can I have the number for whomever I should call to follow up?" Make sure you call on the appointed day so that you do not miss an opportunity. Sales managers have been known to offer a job only to candidates who actually follow up like they said they would. Following up on your interview is important. It demonstrates your commitment, and if you are not successful in getting the job, it provides you with helpful information. If they call to say, "No thanks," ask them, "Why not?" Often an employer will answer this question, but only if you ask. You can phrase the question like, "Can you tell me what made the candidate you selected stand out? Can you tell me what I can do to improve my chances of being selected next time?" Write down the answer that the employer offers. If your emotions are close to the surface when you get the news, you may not remember what they said. If you write down their comments, you can refer to them when you are ready to digest the information. Perhaps the person that got the job has more years in the industry or performed better in testing. In psychological testing for the military or police work, sometimes issues arise that a candidate must address through counseling. After dealing with their issue, they may reapply and get hired. Always ask for feedback if possible. Sealing the deal. Congratulations! You got the job! A job offer can be offered verbally or in writing. The style depends on the disposition of your new manager and the type of work you will be doing. If you are going to work for a company that has certain regulations and rules you must agree to, the offer will come in writing and you will be required to sign it before you start work. Before you sign a job offer letter, be sure to read the fine print. Usually the offer that you received verbally is accurately captured in the letter, but other times it is not. Make sure the letter clearly describes your start date and first shift time, hours of work, terms of pay, mandatory deductions, union dues, benefits, etc. Uniforms. Do you have to wear one? When? Who pays for it? You or the employer? Non-competition clauses. Vacation. Other terms you negotiated. Some employers do not routinely produce a letter of offer, but it is always a good idea to ask for one and to keep it in a safe place at home. For example, students who work part-time during school often work in the service industry. They need to know whether the employer expects them to work shifts that will interfere with school. Although in some jurisdictions, students are prohibited from working after 10 p.m., other communities may schedule students for any hour. Some young people are surprised to learn they are expected to work until 1 a.m. on a school night, so don't get caught by surprise. Now, how about resignation? The rule of thumb is that you do not give your resignation from your current job until you have your new job offer in hand. Otherwise, you may quit one job only to discover that you don't have another one to go to, or that the terms of employment in your letter of offer were not quite what you expected. You should write a letter of resignation. In practical terms, this letter should be short. It can be handwritten or typed. You do not have to mention the reason why you are leaving the job or problems that you encountered. Sometimes these things are best left unsaid in the resignation, but you may wish to bring them up in a last meeting with your boss, sometimes referred to as an exit interview. The key ingredients for a letter of resignation are the length of notice, the last day of work. So I guess this is it. I hope you enjoyed this session. If you have any questions, please drop a line to us or discuss it with other peers in the discussion board.